Hello everyone, I'm Miss Linda. I am here today at the Terry Farrell Park. You can see there's a great swing set behind me. They have tennis courts, they have basketball courts. It's a great place to visit this summer. And today I'd like to share with you a book that I first read over 40 years ago. Now, since then I have read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books. But this book I always remember is one of my favorites. I hope it will be a favorite of yours too. It's called David and Dog by Shirley Hughes. Once there was a soft brown toy called Dog. One of his ears pointed upward and the other flopped over. His fur was worn in places because he was quite old. He belonged to David. David was very fond of Dog. He took him everywhere. Sometimes he gave him rides in a truck. Sometimes he pulled him along on a leash made of string like a real dog. When it was cold, he wrapped him up in a bit of old blanket. Now and again, David's mother said the dog was getting much too dirty. She showed David how to wash him in a bowl of soapy water. Then they hung him up by his tail on the clothesline to dry. David's baby brother Joe liked hard toys. He liked putting them in his mouth and biting on them because he was getting teeth. David's big sister Bella took 7 teddies to bed with her every night. She had to sleep right up against the wall to stop herself from falling out. But David liked only Dog. One afternoon, David and Mother went to pick up Bella from school. Mother took Joe in the stroller and David took Dog. Next to the school gate, where the mothers waited for, was a playing field. Some men with ladders were putting up colored flags. Mother said there was going to be a summer fair to get money to buy things for the school. David pushed Dog up against the railing to show him what was going on. Just then, the children started to come out of school. The ice cream truck came around the corner playing a tune. Bella ran up with her book bag flying. "Mother, can we have an ice cream?" Mother gave her money for 2 cones. Joe didn't have a whole ice cream cone to himself because he was too dribbly. On the way home, David walked beside the stroller, giving Joe licks off of his ice cream. Joe kicked his feet and shouted for more in between licks. At summertime, David was rather quiet. In the bath, he was even quieter. At bedtime, he said, "I want Dog." But Dog was nowhere to be found. Mother looked under the bed. She looked behind the cupboard. She searched in the kitchen and underneath the stairs. David watched anxiously through the banister. Joe watched through the bars of his crib. Bella joined in to look for Dog. She emptied her own toy box in case it was in there, but it wasn't. When Dad came home, he looked for Dog too. He searched in the shed and down the garden path with a flashlight. David was very sad when he went to bed. Bella kindly lent him one of her teddies to go to sleep with, but it was not the same thing as Dog. David kept waking up in the night and missing him. The next day was Saturday and they all went to the school summer fair. The playing field was full of stalls and sideshows. There was a fancy dress parade. There were sports with an egg and spoon race, a wheelbarrow race, and a father's race. Bella was very good at races. She won the 3-legged race with her friend Barbara. Wouldn't you like to go in for a race, they asked David. David didn't feel like racing. He was missing Dawn too much. Then another very exciting thing happened to Bella. She won first prize in a raffle. It was a huge yellow teddy bear wearing a beautiful blue silk bow. He was almost as big as David. David didn't like that teddy at all. At that moment, he didn't like Bella much either, because she kept on winning things. He ran off on his own to look at the stalls. One lady had a toy store full of knitted ducks and cars and baby dolls and bonnets. And there, at the very back of the store, behind a lot of other toys, was Dog. He was wearing a ticket saying 5 cents. There were a lot of people around the store. David tried to explain to the lady that it was his dog who got lost and somehow been put on the store by mistake, but she wasn't listening. He looked in his pocket. He had 3 cents, but that wasn't enough. He ran to find Mother and Dad to ask to buy them dog back at once. David went everywhere in the crowd, but he couldn't see Mom and Dad. He thought he was going to cry. At last he found Bella by the cakes. When she heard about Dog, she and David ran back to the toy store as fast as they could. But something terrible had happened. Dog had just been bought by a little girl. She was already walking away with him. David began to cry. Bella ran after her and tried to explain the dog really belonged to David. Could they please buy him back? But the little girl said no. She said she had bought Dog with her own money and she wanted him. She held on to him very tightly. David cried and cried, and the little girl started to cry too. But out of the corner of her eye, she caught sight of Bella's big yellow teddy. She stopped crying and put out her hand to strike its beautiful blue silk bow. Then Bella did something very kind. Would you swap this teddy for my brother's dog, she asked. Right away the little girl stopped crying and began to smile. She held out Dog to David, took the big teddy instead, and ran off with him in her arms. Then David smiled too. He hugged Dog and he hugged Bella around the waist. "Thank you, Bella," he said. That night, David had Dog in bed beside him. Bella was practicing somersaults. "Will you miss that big teddy?" David asked her. "No," said Bella. "I didn't like him much, really. He was too big, and his eyes were so scary. Anyway, if I had another teddy in my bed, there wouldn't be room left for me." And that, as you can well aware, is a very nice big sister. I think one of the reasons I always really liked this story and was special to me